Police officers of Reddit, what is the scariest / creepiest thing to happen to you on the job? Warning. Some of you might find these stories disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. When I was in my early 20s, I had a neighbor who was a paramedic. I really admired her, and we were good friends for several years. I thought I might also like to be a paramedic, so she suggested that I go on a ride along with her one night. At about 1 AM, a call came in for a car wreck, and we sped over. A family in a car had been in a pile-up between two semis. The parents were dead on the scene, but their teenage daughter was still alive, crushed between the front and back seat of their vehicle, which collapsed into itself like an accordion. She kept calling for her mother. Mama. Mama. It was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced. She didn't make it, and I did not become a paramedic. Police officer here was dispatched to hold a scene of a domestic assault where the female was attacked with a metal hook until our forensic team arrived. Was there for approximately 3 hours in the house by myself. Got a call from a detective assigned to the case to search the house again as the woman's 2 very young children were still missing. Found them both dead in the bottom of a closet tied up in garbage bags. I'll never forget this one. I responded to a call for a subject shooting a shotgun in his house. When I arrive, his mom runs out screaming he's in his room. I have her wait by my car. Me and another officer enter. I'm point man. We make our way to his bedroom, and I turn the corner. He is sitting in a chair with a shotgun and looks at me. He casually greets me. I had dealt with him before, from a past arrest. I attempt to talk to him, and try to keep him calm. After about a minute he just says doesn't matter, thanks for trying though, and then shoots himself in the head. Did not survive. Still haunts me, but thanks to therapy and family I have handled as well as I could, and I'm still a cop. I was working an off-duty job at a local theme park. It was an overpass, so the park was completely closed with no one around besides the occasional cleaner or painter. I usually just sit in my patrol car on my laptop, but when I get sleepy or need to stretch my legs I get out and go for a walk around the empty park. Let me tell you, amusement parks are really ducking creepy when they are empty at night, but I got used to it. On this particular night I was doing my normal walk on my phone, probably on Twitter, when I look up and see a lady who appeared to be in her 60s, nonchalantly sitting at a table in one of the restaurants that was closed, like just sitting there in the dark. This really confused the hell out of me, and she was not dressed like an employee. I tapped on the window, and she turned her head and stared straight at me. I asked loudly what she was doing, and she just turned her head back away from me and ignored me. I tried to open the door, and it was locked. I called on the radio for park security to come over there and confirm if this lady was supposed to be there, while I walked back to my car to get the set of keys I kept in there. As I walk back to the front of the restaurant, 2 security guards are walking up at the same time as me. One of them peers in the window and asks somebody was in here. I look and the lady is no longer at the table. We get it open and search every crevice of this place and there was not a soul in there. You can say I was a little freaked out. We went back and checked the exterior cameras and nobody entered or exited. To this day this creeps me out and I can't explain it. My grandfather was a cop for 40+ years. He recently told me a story about getting a call from a neighbor saying they hadn't seen their neighbor, let's call him Bill, for a few days. My grandfather and another cop, John, show up at Bill's house. They knock and knock, but no answer. They check the doors and lo behold, one is unlocked. As they enter the house, my grandfather starts calling out, "Mr. Bill, are you home? Is everything alright?" This goes on while they search the house. Finally, Officer John goes down the steps to the basement. My grandfather hears him say, "Oh, Mr. Bill, there you are. Is everything alright?" My grandfather goes down the steps to see Bill standing in his basement in his suit, complete with his hat, and one thing that was very off. My grandfather goes, "John, I think Bill is dead." Dumbfounded, Officer John says, "He's standing right there, and you don't see the rope around his neck." So, apparently Bill had hung himself with clothing line rope, tied it to a beam in his basement, and kicked away the stool he was standing on. Over the however many days it had been, the rope had stretched so much that Bill looked like he was standing in the dark basement. Out of all the stories I've heard so far, that was the saddest, funniest, because of Officer John's confusion, and darkest story I've heard my grandfather tell. This older lady calls because her husband went outside to cut wood and didn't come back for lunch. He was recently diagnosed with a terminal illness. Anyway, we end up locating him in his barn hanging by the neck from a rafter. The other deputy had been on the job a while and seen most all. I on the other hand was new and hadn't seen shit. He'd been hanging a while because his neck was stretched out and his feet and ankles were filled with blood. He tells me to grab his thighs while he cuts the rope. Once the rope was cut, the old guy flopped over my shoulder, which forced all the air out of him through his throat and voice box. I can't really describe it, but it was like the loudest and longest moan I'd ever heard. I screamed and dropped him. I felt bad for both. Not a cop, but a former EMT. I worked night shift, and this was either the night before or night of Halloween. We get a call to be a fee for generalized pain, which is a giant red flag for us, because that could range from I hurt my finger to I got shot and I'm dying, but I don't want the cops to come. Now, since this is night shift, we get this call about 3 AM. So we get there, and it's a creepy old lady who get us to go into the house from the garage. Why? Because she has a TV blocking the front door out of fear of zombies or something showing up to rob her. Weird, right? Well, this garage was pitch black. We asked her to turn on the light and she wouldn't do it because squirrels chewed up the wires. So my partner and I kind of gave a weird look to each other, but didn't think much of it since we thought it was some Halloween thing. We go inside and there's a single mattress on the floor. No other furniture besides that TV blocking the front door. The patient is the crazy lady's daughter. She's got chronic pain, so it's NBD. So we get her to the truck and something seems off with the crazy lady. So I automatically close the door to the truck, leaving the medic and patient in there, since he's much bigger than me and can handle himself, and a patient already strapped to the stretcher. So I'm outside the truck and crazy old lady is standing there with her arm in a sling that she had just put on. I asked her to leave so I could go to the hospital. She tries to hand me a Diet Coke for her daughter and I refuse. This sets her off. She throws the Coke and runs off towards the house, but only a few feet before she turns back around and starts coming at me. I see something in her hand. She had pulled a knife out. My paramedic then opens the door to tell me he's ready to go, and it startles the lady enough for me to be like 8 Lego, and off we go to the hospital. I went home and cried. That was the first time I was almost killed on duty, and it was 3 AM at Halloween. My uncle was a cop in LA. He was attending a road traffic accident where a car had been racing round a corner too quickly, gone off the road, and gotten stuck between some cement blocks. The car was completely vertical, the driver facing down to the ground and the trunk facing the sky. The guy was relatively coherent, but he trapped in the car because the front of the car was crunched and his legs were stuck. The car set on fire before they could get him out, and he was basically burned alive. When they got the car out, all that was left was bones, apart from his fleshy legs that were preserved in the footwell. Not a cop or EMT, not my story. Friend's boyfriend was working for emergency services and received a call to 000 from a woman who said someone had hung themselves off a bridge overpassing the highway she was driving on. She said he was definitely dead. When they arrived at the scene, they found that in her shock she had failed to tell them that his body had come away from his head, still stuck in whatever he hung himself with. His body had landed on her bonnet as she was driving along. Yep, he was definitely dead. I had a dude overdose on heroin while trying to get something from his bedside table. He collapsed into it and choked to death with his head in the top drawer because he couldn't move. The best he could do is kind of hug it. So in the morning, Mum comes in and sees him, drags him off, and puts him on the floor before calling 000. He is left exactly as he died. We arrived and he is on his back with all his limbs up like a dead bug, kind of like a crawling position, but on his back. His face and neck was red, but his throat had a white line where the drawer was resting to choke him. At a glance it looked like his throat was sliced because of the color difference. It wasn't scary so much, it just looked bizarre and isn't what you expect at 7 AM. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of the Undertaker straightening out the rigor mortis joints.
Thank you for watching. New videos posted every week. See you then. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my channel.